The lunge. All right. As you can tell, this is a primary exercise in functional movement patterns. So we're going to describe what is the proper lunge and where we should start to think about progressing people in the lunge form. So Tara's going to perform a static lunge. That way we don't have to worry about the dynamic and the balance component of decelerating our body. We're going to get to that in a moment. So as Tara drops into we'll say an anterior lunge and then come back up. What we're looking for is to have a short foot position, which we're going to get more detail, but having her foot come into a neutral position. So creating that arch. As she drops into the lunge, we want to make sure that that knee stays in line with our foot, okay? Particularly over the first toe, and then come back up. So the one thing that we don't want to see is as you lunge, the knee goes into a valgus point. Obviously that will stress the knee. We want the knee to be a hinge joint, and we'll get to that joint by joint theory soon, I promise you. Dropping down, we also don't want to see that, okay? Because again, that will overload the medial aspect of the knee. And then come back up. We want to be right in the middle. We want to drop down through the hip, through the knee, and through the ankle. And we're going to show that laterally in a moment. So again, obviously good posture, ear, shoulder, hip in alignment. So as you drop down, we want to make sure that they don't flex forward or deviate in the frontal plane side to side. And she looks great with the stability. So now, turning to the side here, if you would please, and then drop this leg back into a split, into a stride stance. Here you go. So do the same thing for me. So now she drops vertically, perfect. She's utilizing, and then come back up. She's utilizing her hips. This is a hip dominant lunge, which is perfect. Dropping down, and then her knee is flexing because of the hip drop. The weight's on equally distributed through her heel and her forefoot. So if she was to go down and lower the front of her toe, her heel would pick up and that would put too much pressure on her knee. It would become less of a hip dominant lunge. If she has plenty of dorsiflexion, which she does, she can get away with letting that knee translate forward. Okay? So that all depends on your individual and what they can do mechanically, individually. So as she drops down, again, nice vertical pattern, okay? A little bit of knee flexion or translation is okay, and this is also okay too. If you want to drop down, I'm going to hold your knee, and you use your hip, weight on the heel, and then come back up. Less stressful on the knee, more dominant in the hip, using the hip musculature more. All right, very good. Thank you. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to more dynamic. So, we're going to face forward. So I want you to perform an anterior lunge. And here's where we're going to talk about tri-post a little bit. So as Tara's here in a neutral stance, a little bit wide with your feet. Okay, hip width apart is XXX position. Tri-post is right here, right between her feet. So now for Tara to perform an anterior lunge, she needs to lunge forward and hit that tri-post position. So there you go, perfect. Excellent job. So again, so now we're into the dynamic phase. So I would watch her and see if that knee was going in or out in the frontal plane, whether it's going too far forward in the sagittal plane, whether she's dropping through the hips. And that's all our cueing and training people make sure their dorsiflexion is okay. Perfect, looks good. Now we already saw that on the lateral view, so we don't have to go to that. Now we're going to utilize our reaches. So our tri-post is in the middle. Once we make an anterior lunge, our tri-post becomes underneath the lunging leg. So as I lunge here, the tri-post is now under this foot. That will dictate where we're going to reach. So what Tara's going to do is go ahead and reach at knee height with both hands. So a bilateral arm driver at knee height. There you go. Perfect. Just right at knee height. I can give her target. Now, because I'm driving her, you notice that her torso is coming forward. That's utilizing more hip flexion, therefore more gluteal muscles. Okay, that's going into our friends in. Less on the knee. Now, as we go vertical, I'm going to have her reach at waist height. Okay? A little less torso involvement because she doesn't have to. Now, I'm going to ask you to reach overhead for me. There you go. Good. Now what that's going to do is allow that knee possibly to translate more forward. The hip is still involved, but the knee is now going to have to work harder, and the calf musculature is going to have to work harder too. So again, her tri-post is going to be dependent on her front foot. So I'm going to go through now your rotational reaches. So what I'd like you to do at shoulder height, lunge and rotate to your right. There you go. So I didn't give a certain command. I just said rotate your arms at shoulder height. So she's going to go ahead and do it again. She's going to self-select how far she's going to rotate. Now also I can say, well, let's go ahead. Her lunge technique is holding true. Her knee is staying here. Her hips are fine as she's rotating through the thoracic spine. Now I'll have you go left rotation, bilateral arm rotation at shoulder height to 90 degrees. I'm going to give her a target. All right, go ahead and lunge and hold right here. So her tri-post is under this foot. So 90 degrees is now right here. So she's got to reach over here and then come back. So that's how we use our angulations and our drivers and create different reactions. Go ahead and lunge again. So our L90 here is a lot different than L135, which is over here in an angle. Right, and then come back up. Creating different reactions. Now we just go to the frontal plane. What I'm going to have you do is lunge, and we're going to go L to the left lateral at overhead. Very good. Excellent. Come back. And lunge again. Good. Perfect. Now I did not give a particular command, so it's self-selected. This is the rule of self-selection. Go ahead, go L, good, L90, perfect, good, at overhead. So bilateral arm reach at overhead to L90. I'm going to have you do that to the right side now. Lunge and reach, perfect. Good job. Again, the lunge holding true. One more time. Very good. So that's our lunges. Using our reaches, talking about tri-post and the verticality component. We'll cover lateral lunges in a moment.